Good afternoon, church. I'm here today to update you on our regathering plan for worship here at Trinity. And that's a term that I really like to use now, regathering. I want to remind you, the church was never closed, but we didn't gather for a while. And now, council has met, we've talked, and we do have a plan for how we are going to regather as a church body in the church building for in-person worship. So I do want to let you know, as you watch this video, there's two real big news items, and I'm going to go ahead and get both of those out sort of as fast as possible. You guys know I like to talk. But if you're interested in regathering, after I get sort of the news portion done, we'll have a lot of specifics about what regathering looks like. So I would encourage you, if that's you right now, you can't wait for us to regather, you got to stick around for the whole video and hear the whole thing to see how we're going to do this, okay? So your church council did not come to these decisions lightly. There was a lot of discussion, and I want to preface our recommendations by saying to you that one of church council's deciding factors, one of the things that we took most into consideration was personal responsibility. You being able to make your own choices, other people being able to make their own choices. As we looked at safeguards and policies, what we could do, what we didn't think we could do, we just kept coming back to this idea that if you bring people into the building, if you go to the grocery store, if you go to a restaurant, no matter how many safeguards, policies, procedures you put in place, some people will still be uncomfortable. Some people are still not ready to return. So we really put a high premium on you know whether you feel comfortable or not. So we want to put that responsibility sort of on anyone who's going to come back to worship. You know the risks, you know what we're dealing with. And we want to let you sort of be intelligent and make your own decisions as we start to come back. So that being said, if you're not comfortable in a crowd yet, you might want to stay home until there's new information, and that's fine. Nobody should feel rushed to come back to church. We are still working very hard, and we're still going to have Facebook and YouTube available as options to view our services and be a part of our services going forward. Arrangements are still being made for smaller groups that'll watch recordings of the service at later dates. So there's still options even if you aren't ready. No one should feel forced to come back to church. And so because of that, that sort of changed the way we looked at some of our safeguards, policies, procedures going forward. Okay? On that subject, your church council welcomes any input after you hear what I have to say today. If you have thoughts about what you think we should be doing, what we could do better. I think there are many council members who would like to hear from more people what they think, what we can do. So your council does welcome that, whether it's this month or next month, to hear from you what your thoughts are going forward. All right, I got that all out of the way. Here's the two big pieces of information. The first one, the one you're excited about, the one you can't wait for, the one I'm excited about now. Beginning this Sunday, June 14th, that's right, this Sunday, we will begin sort of a phase one of our regathering plan right here at Trinity UCC at 9:30 a.m. You can share in a community of worship this Sunday at Trinity, 9:30. Now, this first phase is all about regathering, finding out what it takes to be safely in the building, how people react with each other, how people communicate, things like that. During phase one, we'll be showing the same sort of pre-recorded messages, the video that you've been seeing on Sunday mornings. We're going to just show that same thing in the church building, in the sanctuary. So if you're watching at home, you'll see me in the sanctuary doing the pre-recording. If you're watching here in person, you'll be watching the screen as that same video plays. It's just for people who want to get out of their house and experience worship together with people again. This goes back once again. If you're fully comfortable staying home, if you feel that's safer and that style of worship isn't maybe appealing to you, you can go ahead and stay home. But there are definitely people who want to be back in the building. Even with recorded services, you can worship with your friends and neighbors. We can see people again, and you're back in the church building. So that begins this Sunday, June 14th, right here at Trinity, 9:30 a.m. We are back to gathering as we watch worship together and have that time with a little bit of interaction. So if that's you and you can't wait to come back in the building, keep listening, because in a couple minutes we're going to talk about what that looks like. But the second piece of big news, and this is more for our people who are saying, I'm not comfortable yet, I would rather stay home until there's more information available about safe ways to come out, safety from this virus. Some of you may be even waiting for therapies or a vaccine. What about me, Pastor Ryan? Am I going to still be able to be a part of my church? Well, if you're looking at me right now, yes, you will. We have invested in some new equipment to make sure that whatever our church service looks like going forward, people watching on Facebook and YouTube, people watching on our website will still be a part of our service. So we've purchased new equipment, including the camera that I'm talking to you right now. So hopefully the picture's real good. I know I got a little bit of autofocus going on there. So during phase 1, people are watching along the same videos as they play in the sanctuary. With the new equipment that we've bought, the phase 2, which we think will be 2 to 4 weeks down the road, the phase 2 will be we start live streaming services from our sanctuary straight to Facebook, YouTube, and whatever other avenues we want to use, so that those at home can still interact with each other through chat. They can still watch live and feel like you're right here in the pews with us, but you can do that from the safety and comfort from your own home, sort of merging two communities together. We've heard from people who are normally snowbirds who want to make sure that they can still go to their church, Trinity, when they're down in Florida. We've heard from people who have family members all across the country who are now, once again, a part of Trinity Elliston. We still want to make that available. So 2 to 4 weeks, we're going to try to get that done to where we can do what we would call a live in-person worship service in the sanctuary, and you at home will be right there with us every step of the way. Now, a challenge I have for you, and I want you to take this seriously. If we're going to do this, if that sounds like a valuable ministry to you, something that would be helpful to the life of the church, we're going to need to train 2 or 3 new volunteers on just some new equipment. We already have the soundboard. We already have the PowerPoint. We can't add more things and not train up some new leaders. So I believe God is calling us to a new mission field. We've met some new people in the last couple months, even as we've been not meeting in person. We want that to continue. So you're hearing my voice right now. Call it the Holy Spirit calling on you. Maybe you feel a little tingle. We need 2 or 3 people who are willing to learn this system along with myself and Marty so that we can continue to stream these services each and every week and connect with people at home. So I want you to take that challenge seriously. I need 2 or 3 people to sign up for that. So that's the big stuff. Phase 1 and Phase 2 coming up in June and July, right sort of on schedule. We talked about it. And we're going to be able to worship in the sanctuary face-to-face, and we're going to be able to worship online for those who are not yet comfortable or cannot make it into our sanctuary. Now the question is, what does the church look like going forward? What do church services look like going forward? And that's where a couple things are going to change. These are the questions we wrestled with. We didn't come to these decisions lightly. There was a lot of conversation. And it went sort of all over the place on what is too restrictive, what is too free. And as I said at the start of this, a lot of what council wanted to stress was only you can decide if you're comfortable or not coming back into the building. Only you can decide when you think it's safe to join us. So we're going to do things to make that easier and safer, but we can't get rid of the fact that there is some risk coming back. So you have to ask yourself right now, are you comfortable going to a restaurant right now? Would you go to a restaurant? Would you go to a wedding or a wedding reception right now? If your family had a gathering, a big birthday party or something else, would you attend that? And what precautions would you take? Because if any of those you think are a little bit too risky, the reality is church is probably too risky too. And that's okay. We understand that. We're not forcing anyone to come back. We want you back, but we don't want you to do anything that makes you feel uncomfortable. So as we discussed through council, we just sort of thought the church only has a limited ability to police, I guess if you want to use that word, the behavior of those in attendance. We can only put up so many safeguards, and not all those safeguards will answer every question and free us from every worry. We can't get there. So the church council put a lot of personal responsibility for you to be your own advocate. If you come to church and things are happening that you're not comfortable with, you have to be okay saying, okay, I'm not ready for this yet. Or if you are a person who is comfortable, you have to be willing to come in and say, yep, this is exactly what I want, okay? So here are the guidelines and recommendations based on our church council meeting. Everyone planning to attend in-person worship is asked to pre-screen themselves for all the stuff you hear about, basic COVID check, and to stay home if you have any signs of illness. So this includes, do you have a fever? Do you have a cough? Do you have the chills, headache, sore throat? If you have any of those things, please stay home. If you have pre-existing conditions that make you more vulnerable to the virus, we think it's probably in your best interest to stay home. And if you're uncomfortable with large gatherings, you should probably stay home. The sanctuary has been marked off to allow for some social distancing as we return to in-person worship. But we also are going to leave some of that to your discretion. You know, there's lots of families together. You know who you've interacted with. You know who you've connected with. And you also know who you would be comfortable still sitting next to, even if they're not members of your family. I'm not going to try to police who you sit next to. Things are set up, but you're going to have to make decisions about what you're comfortable with. And if the situation turns uncomfortable, once again, advocate for yourself so that you maintain a distance that you are comfortable with others. I won't ask you to move, but we do encourage the social distancing, and we're just going to leave that to your best judgment. Masks, a big question people ask. We are encouraging masks, but we will not require them. Once again, I'm not going to try to force a mask onto your face. But I do want to say we think it's especially important while we're entering and exiting the building, when there's that sort of churn of people that might be walking past each other, we think it might be a good idea for you to wear a mask, and so we would encourage those. Number 4 is singing, and singing is a hotly debated topic. In fact, I will be blunt with you. When we hear from medical experts, when we hear from even choir groups, they're all recommending that we don't sing in church. But our conversation, a lot of people thought, well, if you're not going to sing in church, that's part of what church is. We want to come back to that. So I know that some people there's strong opinions, I guess, on this subject. But when we gather back in church, part of the risk that we're going to agree to is that we are going to sing in church. Now, we do think if you plan to sing, we would really like you to wear a mask. Just keep a little bit of that droplet spread a little further in, a little more restricted, because one of the big issues with singing is apparently the droplet spread goes much further than just talking. So if you want to sing, we would strongly encourage you to wear a mask because we think that might help. But once again, we just need you to know if you're going to come back, people are going to sing, and are you ready for that? Are you okay with that? Children's activities such as branching out and the upfront children's moment, we're going to be on pause for those for just a little bit while we figure some things out. Certainly we're going to wait and see maybe what the schools do, and that might open up some possibilities for us. Branching out does not normally meet in the summer anyway, so we think that's a pretty easy decision to make. And in terms of children's moment, there will still be a time for children, whether it's a special worship song, a cartoon like we've been doing, so that they still have something targeted for them in the service, but we just won't have them come up front, once again, until we have better information and know more what's happening in the next couple months. There are certain restrictions that we're going to place on rituals in the church that we might normally do. Touch rituals, especially things that involve passing things around. So we're not going to have a shake hand greeting time. That's a pretty easy one. If you do want to talk to people, we probably think you should do that outside of the building, out in the open air. That's probably a little bit safer. We're not going to pass a collection plate. Instead, we're going to have boxes or plates at the front and back of the sanctuary for you to lay your offering in. And for the time being, we're not going to do in-person communion. We'll probably still do some digital communion services like we've been doing on a special date, but we're not going to do in-person communion for the time being, just to avoid, once again, a little bit more cross-contamination, just one less thing to worry about. Both main entranceways, the north and the south doors, they're both going to be open on Sunday morning. But we are trying to keep, once again, cross-contamination low. So as long as the weather permits and the doors stay open, we're going to just open the doors wide, basically, so that people can come in without having to make contact with those doors. and that'll be how you enter the building. There will be restrooms available. A lot of our conversation was about cleaning. How do we clean and properly make sure places are sanitized? While all bathrooms are available, we're asking people to do their best to limit the use of bathrooms to the main bathrooms, which are near our north doors. That gives us just one less thing to worry about in terms of cleaning, sanitizing, in case there are other people in the building. We don't want to risk any more cross-contamination. Another thing you might notice if you join us in worship is either myself or a volunteer might take attendance, and we might ask specific individuals, write down, so-and-so was here, so-and-so was here. It's not really about tracking you. I guess it kind of is, but it's not like, it's not the CIA. But what we're really just trying to do is if there was an outbreak of any kind, if someone did test positive, we want to be able to contact everyone who was at that service and say, hey, just want to let you know this happened. And you should be on the lookout for symptoms of COVID-19. And also, we would still tell the whole church, we would still announce that far and wide, but we would just want to make sure that we could contact every individual and let them know if there was any chance that they were exposed. And then one sort of big change going forward, we always said the church never really closed, but as things shut down, it got harder and harder to have certain activities. We are now going to open up the church for members, specifically members to use the building again for small group gatherings, if that's something you're interested in and wanted to put on the schedule. But we do want to ask for reservations to do that. Once again, just so we can keep good track of who's in the building, so if someone does become sick, we can contact all the right people. So we want to make sure you have a reservation. You can use the building and be back in the building for small group gatherings. And depending on the time of your activity and what your activity is, we might have a small cleaning fee now. That's still sort of being figured out, but we just wanted to let you know that that's a possibility because obviously we have to make sure that the church is clean for Sunday morning. Then we have to make sure that the church is clean again for office workers, me and Rhonda basically, when we come back in Monday. And so depending on when your activity is, there just might be additional protocols either for you or additional small fee for cleaning. Okay. I've gone almost 20 minutes. I said I would go short. You knew I wouldn't. But I think that covers most of it. I know it's a lot of information, and I know you might still have questions, and that's okay. You can send them to the church office. You can send them to the church council, and we will do our best to answer them. But this is our way back. We feel like it's time. That was pretty unanimous. I think it was unanimous. It was time to let people who want to come back, and I am really excited to be in worship with you guys again. I mentioned in the service last week that, I was in the church just bawling my eyes out a couple weeks ago, listening to praise music just to be back in the building. And I'm sure some of you will have that sort of same reaction. So we are excited to bring you back into worship, but these are the steps to sort of get there. So I'm just going to review real quick. Phase 1 starts this Sunday, June 14th. Phase 1, we will allow you in the building. At 9:30, we'll gather in here, but we're going to watch the pre-recorded service with all of our friends online. You can sit there with your smartphone and still type in the chat, but you'll be in the building, which I know a lot of people are looking forward to. And then we're going to start building our we're going to start building our system for phase 2, 2 to 4 weeks probably, where we get a nice streaming system so that we can put on a high-quality presentation for all of our friends that are going to stay home. And they can still stream our services online, and we're going to go forward. And then there was all the guidelines on what we're going to do. All right, church, ton of information. The real just great thing is that we are a church that adapts so well. God has blessed us in so many ways, and God is going to continue to bless us. I think our church gets bigger because of this, gets wider for this, reaches out to new people because of this. And that is my prayer, that God is going to use this to just create something wonderful for us as our vision goes forward. So keep praying for those that are ill. Keep praying for those who are in mourning. Obviously, we've had some loss in our church recently. We've had some struggles in our church recently. Don't forget those people. But I know we are excited to get back together. So pray for us, our safety as we return. And I can't wait to see you guys in church, either through the lens or right here in person starting this week. We'll talk to you soon.